What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the Game Week preview for Game Week 9, of course. There's a lot of big topics to go through. In fact, have a listen to this. Like I said, I've had to record it a little bit earlier than I normally would like to, so I haven't seen the Champions League games. Hopefully there's nothing major. Obviously, if there's an injury to Lukaku, I'll have to try and re-record this video, in which case you won't see it at all. You'll have seen a re-edited version. So yeah, I recorded the whole Game Week preview video. There was a big chunk about Lukaku versus Vardy, like form with Lukaku and stuff like this as well, and then he goes and gets injured in the Champions League game. So I'm re-recording the bits that focus around Lukaku. Going to talk a lot now about possible Lukaku replacements for sure, because that's going to be a massive topic. So I've kept a few things in that I recorded that weren't affected by tonight's games. Otherwise, I've put a bunch of new bits in as well. So if you enjoy it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and let's just quickly talk about our sponsor of today's video. So happy to say that this video has been sponsored by NordVPN. If you don't know what a VPN is, it's a virtual private network that's going to boost your security and your encryption while you're online. And to give NordVPN a go, just go to nordvpn.com/letstalkfpl or click that link in the description below. Sign up for a 2-year plan. There's also a bonus gift with a big discount as well. Just got to click that link in the description below. One of the big benefits to using a VPN is it stops people from being able to see what you're doing online. It's not really about hiding what you're doing, it's more protecting what you're doing. So that includes when you're at home using your own network, but also when you're out and about on public networks in bars or restaurants or cafes, wherever you're going. It protects you from other people that might be on that network from seeing what you're doing. There's a whole heap of benefits to using NordVPN. You can see them on screen now. Secure internet, fastest VPN. There's over 60 countries to connect to as well. Loads of servers. You can connect in one click, which I'll show you in just a second. My favorite thing, I think, is this one at the bottom, access your content. So if you go abroad and the stuff you usually watch at home isn't available, you can use a VPN to connect to it. And the same if you use something like Netflix and you're in Ireland or the UK, wherever you might be, you can connect to a USA server and watch the stuff on the USA one instead. Let me show you how easy it is. I'm in NordVPN now. Just one click on the quick connect button will send me somewhere else. It's going to keep me in Ireland, but it's going to give me a different IP address and stuff like that. If I just quickly disconnect, again, on the side, you've got a whole bunch of different countries you can go to if there's a particular one you want. For example, if I want to go to the United States, I just narrow down the search, click United States, and boom, there I am. If I'm on Netflix, I can discover different content and all that good stuff as well. It really is that quick. So if you want to give it a go, nordvpn.com/letstalkfpl. There's a discount there if you go through that link. There's a link in the description below. Go and get it downloaded right now and get yourself protected. Okay, let's do what we've done all week, which is talk about Lukaku, but obviously this is in a slightly different way because now he's gone off injured in the Champions League match last night, and according to Tuchel, he's going to be out for some matches. Now, it's worth noting that obviously straight after the game, yes, you can get a diagnosis off the doctor or whatever, but until they scan it, they're not going to know exactly how long he's out for. So some matches could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be longer, right? I'm not an expert on that. We'll wait to see what Tuchel says in his press conference. So it's worth bearing that in mind. I think for what happened and what people are kind of saying on Twitter, and obviously, you know, make of that what you will, it sounds like he's going to be out for a few games anyway, and obviously matches kind of implies that. So it's probably worth getting rid of him. I don't think most people have got a squad where they can probably hold him for another week or two. It's just not worth it. It's so much money. You need to kind of put that back into your squad. So that is what was said about him. So in this one, we're going to talk about, or in this section, we're going to talk about replacements. Now, I will say, I originally recorded, like I said, this video yesterday, and I did a quick reaction to it on a live stream. It's still quite fresh in the mind, like exactly what the best replacement is. Like for my own team, there is a lot of different ways you can spend this money, and I'm not quite set on a specific way of doing it. So I'm going to talk through my team tomorrow in a different video. But for this one, we're going to talk about straight replacements, who people are looking at. Now, straight away, right, in this graphic, I've only got room for 6 names. You could add Mane and De Bruyne to this list. I think there's lots of other options you could look at as well, but these are kind of the main ones. I mean, when you've got possibly 6, maybe 8 if you include Mane and De Bruyne replacements, that's quite a lot, right? So let's talk about the obvious ones first. I think Kane and Vardy is where most people are going to want to spend their money because there is a instinct or a knack, a human nature to spend all your money, right? So you see Lukaku's price. Some of you will be able to get to Kane for free. If not, you're going to go down to Vardy. You spend pretty much the same amount of money. That feels comfortable, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Look, I don't have a problem with Vardy at all, but I actually quite like the idea of bringing Kane in. The fixtures over the kind of next 6 to 8 weeks for Kane and Vardy are not too dissimilar. So if you want to go for Vardy, absolutely no issue with that at all. In fact, let's look at Vardy first, right? Let's look at his fixtures first. I'll just bring up Soyuncu. So Brentford and Leeds in the next 3, which isn't too bad. But bearing in mind, like, a lot of you will be saying to me that Brentford's actually quite a difficult fixture. So how good is that for Vardy? You have to make your own mind up. I actually think it's not too bad, right? I think they can get a goal or two there for sure. Arsenal at home is probably not that bad either. Leeds away is a good fixture. Chelsea at home is the most difficult one coming up. And then straight after that, you got Watford at home. So game week 12 is when Kane's fixtures get really good. So they've got, I think Kane's got Leeds at home in game week 12, which we'll look at in just a second. So Chelsea at home is not ideal, but straight after that is Watford, Southampton, Villa, Newcastle. So overall, this next 8 fixtures are good for Vardy, right? And obviously he's been playing really well. I personally prefer Kane. I think, yes, okay, everyone can tell me Vardy's been in form this season so far. Kane hasn't. But I just think the fixtures are going to play into Kane's hands. And okay, the next 3 are not ideal. You would probably say that Vardy's got better fixtures over the next 3 because West Ham away, Everton away, not great. Man United at home, maybe not great either. Although, given how Man United defended again in the Champions League last night, I'm not sure it's that bad of a fixture, especially when you're at home. But then Leeds, Burnley, Brentford and Norwich, and then Norwich at home at the end. Like, this is such a good run of fixtures. For me, a lot of this comes down to captaincy. Who do you want to captain in those weeks, right? And I know, again, a lot of you are going to just say that you want to captain Salah every week, which is perfectly fine. If you want to do that, great. But if we look at the fixtures, right, game week 12, Liverpool against Arsenal at home, you could probably say that's better than Kane against Leeds at home. At least if you captain Salah, it wouldn't be the worst thing if you didn't have Kane captain. And we're going to come on to Son as well in a minute. Game week 13 again, Salah versus Southampton at home. You're probably going to captain him over Kane versus Burnley. Game week 14 is Salah versus Everton away. Kane's got Brentford at home. In that week, you might go for Kane, but again, you wouldn't be completely crazy to go for Salah, right? Because he's always a good captain. And then game week 15, Liverpool have got Wolves away, and Spurs have got, I can't even see Spurs, where are they? Norwich at home. So that week, you'd probably want to captain Kane over Salah, in my opinion, right? I think you just want to take advantage of that Norwich fixture. So it's quite close. So I don't think Kane being like this great captain for game weeks 12 to 15 is necessarily that bad of an issue if you go for Vardy. So I probably will go for Kane because I just like those fixtures if I could afford it in one move, which I can. But there's nothing wrong with Vardy if you want to go for a straight swap, right? The other options, don't disregard Tony completely. Okay, now, like I said, it's human nature to want to spend all the money, but I'm actually considering going for Tony because it leaves your options open for what to do next week. The only thing I will say, like if you look at my team, is if you get rid of Lukaku for Tony, when you want to get Kane or Vardy in next week or the week after, whenever it is, it kind of locks you into doing that for Antonio. Now, obviously, this is going to depend on your team setup. Maybe you haven't got Jimenez, maybe you got someone else that you're willing to sell. But for me, it means I would have to get rid of Antonio, which I don't necessarily mind because the fixtures are bad, but I'd rather be in a position where I choose to make that move and not forced into that move. But the thing with Tony is, I think if you look at the fixtures for this week, not game week 12, game week 9, of course, like Brentford are at home, so I don't think Tony over Vardy is that bad. I know people are going to dislike Tony because he hasn't scored enough goals, but his underlying numbers are pretty good. He's on penalties as well, let's not forget, same as Vardy. So I don't think going for him over Vardy is necessarily an awful choice. And Kane I like, but he is playing West Ham away, so that's not that easy either. So going for Tony this week, I don't think would put you that far behind. And then it gives you the option to next week, or this week, you could go for Kane, you could go for Vardy in for Antonio or whichever striker you've got. You could go for Son into midfield. You could get a Havertz punt as well. There's loads of options that Tony kind of opens up. So don't completely disregard him. It's very easy to go to Kane or Vardy, not a bad mistake. But Tony's a great option too. I really like him. Like, he's a great enabler. I wasn't necessarily looking to bring him in this week, but I don't think it's an awful week to bring him in either. So don't completely discount that and see what you can do with the money. Obviously, Son and Havertz, Mane and De Bruyne are not direct replacements for Lukaku, but the options are opened up to pump some money into midfield, especially if you go for the Tony or the Jimenez. By the way, I shouldn't disregard Jimenez because I know not everyone owns him. I think he's not a bad option either. You could look at Callum Wilson. There's lots of cheap options, right? You can't go through the whole game in this particular video. But Son's obviously a really good option. He's done really well this season. I think he's always a great option. I just prefer, if you're getting close to a captaincy call, I'm always going to prefer to captain Kane despite what's happened so far this season. I think for all the perception that Son has been amazing and Kane's been bad, Kane's underlying numbers is expected goal involvement per 90 minutes are basically a little bit higher, as you can see, 0.57 versus 0.51. Now, there's a few caveats to that. Kane's got penalties, Son doesn't, but Son's also a midfielder. So extra point for a goal, extra point for a clean sheet. So they're actually quite close. So you could put the money into Son. Really, that comes down to what strike force you want. Because right now, when I look at it, the reason I like Kane is there's quite a few midfielders that I like. So having Kane take up one of the forward spots alongside Jimenez and alongside Tony, I kind of like that front line. Whereas if I go for Son, it means I've got to have 3 cheap forwards, probably, depending on how I can structure it. And I don't necessarily like that so much. But what I will say, again, there's so many options. I don't want to confuse everyone, but there are so many things to consider. For a lot of teams, depending on how they're set up, if you go for Vardy, you can probably afford, if you rejig it a little bit over the next few weeks, doesn't have to be this week, you can probably afford to get Son as well, Son and Vardy. Whereas I think if you go for Kane, it's probably like Kane and Havertz or Kane and Foden. So that is a big consideration. If you're not looking to captain Kane, I think there's better value in Son and Vardy than there is in Kane and Foden or Kane and Havertz. It depends how you want to structure your squad. And again, I'm going to talk about that a bit more tomorrow, but definitely consider that. A lot of this as well will depend on the time frame. Now, if you're going for Vardy or Kane or Tony, it doesn't really matter how long Lukaku's out for, because we're not bringing Lukaku back at this point, right? Even if he was, back for Game Week 13 against Burnley at home, given that they then play Leicester away, Man United at home, and West Ham away in the next 4, you're not going to bring Lukaku out. I think we have to just accept that he's a goner from our teams for now. But obviously, if he's out for a while, it means Havertz is probably going to play number 9 for a while, because Werner doesn't necessarily play up front as a number 9 on his own anyway, and he also got injured last night. So they don't really have too many other options to play that number 9 position. It is going to be Havertz. I just don't see who else it's going to be. And his numbers so far have not been great, but he's not had a really good run in the team. He's also played in some of the harder fixtures as well. Like he's got some minutes against Liverpool, some minutes against Man City as well. So you can't really beat the fixtures that Havertz has coming up. And like I was speaking to some people on Twitter this morning about how Chelsea can't score goals, but they absolutely can score goals. It depends how you look at it, right? Okay, they've got some results in the Champions League, low-scoring games. They literally scored 4 goals against Malmo last night. They scored 3 goals against Palace, 2 against Arsenal, 3 against Villa, 3 against Spurs, 3 against Southampton. This is a team that can score goals, and Norwich, Newcastle, Burnley are 3 of the best 5 fixtures you can get, and 2 of them are at home. So Havertz, if Lukaku's out for a while, which he probably will be, 2 or 3 games at least, Havertz is a really nice punt, and it doesn't. Yes, it could be short term, but sometimes you have to take advantage of this. Like if he's nailed right now, he is probably a better option than Foden for the next 3, I would say. And also, even if it is short term, if you're putting that money there, and especially if you're funding it with Tony, then when those fixtures are gone, or when Lukaku comes back, you can switch Havertz to Son, or you can switch him to Foden. There are players that you can go to, at least right now. That might change in a few weeks. So I wouldn't completely disregard Havertz as an option. I think he's a damn good option. Aubameyang's probably my least favourite. I don't hate it as a short-term punt. And again, going for the likes of Kane, Vardy, and Aubameyang does keep the money in the spot. And that's not necessarily a bad thing to do, because once you start spreading the cash out, it's much harder to get it. You have to basically, it's not harder, but you have to spend loads of transfers possibly to get that money back. So if I distribute the funds with 2 transfers to midfield, and then I want to get the money back into that spot for Kane, I've probably got to redistribute it again. It's another 2 transfers. So it is worth considering. And with Aubameyang, the fixtures aren't bad. Watford at home, Villa at home, Leicester away. They're okay. It's not bad as a punt. You get that Watford at home game. But I just feel like he is then definitely another transfer waiting to happen for Vardy or Kane. That's not necessarily bad. You get him for Villa, Leicester away, Watford at home, and then switch to Kane. That's probably a better set of fixtures than just getting Kane right now. But it also adds another transfer in. So personally, that's what would put me off him. I'd rather just go to Vardy or Kane and just leave them in. So that is kind of the decisions you've got to make. Just really quickly touching on Mane and De Bruyne. I don't mind that at all. And again, a lot of that depends on whether you want to put money back into your strike force, because as soon as you do that, it's then 2 transfers to get it back to Kane or whoever it might be. So personally, I'm just not sure about getting either of those 2 in. Like, we're never going to captain Mane anyway, because we're always going to captain Salah instead. That's a given. And with De Bruyne, look, he is a great option, but he's 11.9 with no penalties. Like, Mahrez was on the pitch and De Bruyne was on the pitch in the Champions League. Mahrez is still on penalties. We could say that Mahrez might not play every game, whereas De Bruyne probably will. So when they do get a penalty, De Bruyne might take it. But to be honest with you, if he wanted penalties, he would have them. So I don't even know if he really fancies them, to be honest. So someone else might take it. Jesus, for example, if he's on the pitch. So 11.9 for no penalties. I love De Bruyne, and I think he is brilliant even without them. But it just seems like a lot to spend when I know in a few weeks I'm probably going to want to figure out how to have Vardy or how to have Kane. So they are the options. There isn't a standout. There's loads of different ways you can work with the team. It is what it is. It's not me sitting on the fence. You're going to have to decide for your own team. If it was me and I had the exact money, I probably would just go straight to Kane and then make that Antonio to Tony switch later on. But I can't afford to do that. And it's not that I dislike Vardy, but I have to make that decision. Do I want Vardy and Son, or do I want to take a punt on Havertz and to get Kane in later? They are the decisions that you have to make. For me, I just wouldn't go for Aubameyang. I don't think I'd get Mane or De Bruyne. And there's nothing wrong with them at all. It's just not what I would do. I really like the Havertz punt. If Lukaku's going to miss 3 games, Havertz is an awesome option. Probably one of the best options in the game right now. And sometimes you have to take advantage of these players when they come along. It might not work out. Look at Jota early on in the season. But if you keep making those good decisions, it should pay off. And you can always ship that money back to somewhere else. So I'm going to leave this section there because that was quite long. But let me know below, what are you doing with Lukaku? So for some of this video, I'm recording it on Wednesday, right? Because that's when we've got some of the info. I wanted to get it ready, so make sure we get it out on Thursday. And as of Wednesday, Saka was not in training, right? So it was reported from a few sources, not in training today, still nursing a calf injury. And in this one, it says following being booted into the stratosphere against Crystal Palace, which, to be fair, is fairly true, right? It was a really bad challenge. I'm not going to go into that again. So right now, if you think that he's not even training on a Wednesday, that gives him the maximum time to start training on Thursday ahead of a Friday night game. So I'm not saying he's definitely out, but it's not looking good either. So you need to figure out what to do with him, whether to bench him, whether to start him. And obviously, we still got to wait and hear what Arteta says in the press conference. So that might change things again slightly. Obviously, if he says he's fine, then he's fine. But if he says he's a doubt, then he's a doubt, right? So I'm looking at kind of my own team here. And obviously, I went through it on the team selection video yesterday. But I can easily bench him. I don't really have any money to upgrade him. I've already got Mbeumo. I've already got Rafinha as well. Laporte can come off the bench if he doesn't play. Liveramento's on the bench as well. So I'm not really in a rush to sell him. And I would say the same for you as well. If you've got a good bench, you don't necessarily need to have to sell him this week. There's always that temptation when a player's out that you were going to play in your 11 that you have to act on it immediately, but you don't necessarily. And this isn't just true of Saka, it's true of any player, right? If you haven't got Mbeumo or Mbeumo, I'm going to keep saying it in different ways, or Rafinha, they look like pretty good picks. I know some people have mentioned that Rafinha is isolating, but I think that's the rules because of the country he's come back from. He has to isolate, but he can still train once a day and he can play his matches as well, so there shouldn't be any issues with him playing games. So if you haven't got over those two, they're pretty decent replacements. Otherwise, we are going to look at Decore replacements in a minute, and therefore, obviously, you know, whether you're selling Saka or you're selling Decore, you could look at the same players. But I just think in and around that price, Rafinha is probably the only one I'd really look at right now. There's not too many others, unless you got money to go up, in which case Foden is someone I like as well. We know now that Decore is going to be out. Originally, it was rumoured that he'd be out for months and months. I think people were saying it was a broken foot. And then Fabrizio Romano has come out and basically said it's a stress fracture, so it should be about 6 to 7 weeks until he returns. I did look on Decore's own Twitter account, and he basically said, look, it's not good news, but at least we know about it now. We can get it fixed, etc. So it does look like he's going to be out for 6 to 7 weeks. So a bit like Saka, I guess you don't have to get rid of him straight away if you've got a good bench. But the difference is Saka might be back quite soon. Decore isn't. So you're going to be looking at replacements. I've put down kind of the 5 that I would probably look at. There's other players in this price bracket, and I didn't want to go up too much in price either, but these are probably the 5 that I would look at. So starting with Mbeumo, like, he is my top pick from these by some distance, to be honest with you. Like, his numbers are the highest on here. 0.58 expected goals per 90 is really good so far this season. I don't want to be a hypocrite though. I've said about other players that if they've got high numbers right now, we have to just take into account there's only been 8 game weeks, so those numbers could come down a little bit over the course of the season, but he's got a pretty good base to go from, and obviously he is playing up front as well, even though he's listed as midfielder. So for 5.5, he might even go up to 5.6 soon. By the time this video is out, he might even be 5.6 as well. So he's still a bargain. And if you look at, I've already got him in my team. If you look at the fixtures that are coming up, Leicester at home is not bad. Burnley away, Norwich at home as well. with Newcastle away. Like these 3 fixtures, okay, 2 of them are away, but they're 3 of the teams that you want to be facing. And they got Leeds and Watford a little bit later on. And because he's so cheap, he's a bit like he's an enabler, right? So you get him in at a cheap price, playing as a forward with pretty good fixtures. You just keep him in your team for a little while. You're not with these players, right? I think sometimes people get in cheap players like 5.5 to 6. Then when they don't score for a few weeks, they start panicking. But we should be expecting the same returns as a premium player. Obviously, it would be lovely. He's hit the post and the bar 6 times, but you have to be realistic about what he can do. And right now, because he's hit the bar and the post 6 times and he hasn't scored as many goals as he probably deserves, I would say, with how he's played, that will put a lot of people off. And I'm going to talk about form in a minute, but it puts a lot of people off because he hadn't scored a huge amount so far. So you can still get on before a lot of other people. In terms of Townsend and Gray, obviously they are options in Everton anyway, but without Decore, I do worry a little bit about Everton. They're also still missing Calvert-Lewin. He's going to be out for a little while longer as well. We'll have to see about when Richarlison comes back, but they are missing some pretty key players. And so if you own Townsend and Gray, then fair enough, you're probably going to hold on to them. Like if I bring up their fixtures here, right? They've got the Watford at home game this week, which is decent, but then they run into Wolves away, Spurs at home, Man City away. They've even got Liverpool at home after Brentford away. So it's not the most ideal run of fixtures for Everton after this week. So personally, I would completely steer clear. Between Smith Rowe and Odegaard, it looks to me from the like obviously the stats kind of back it up to some extent here as well. But watching the games, it just looks like Smith Rowe is going to be the one that's going to get closer to goal. Odegaard's also been brought off around the 60th minute as well, the last 2 games, so that does worry me a little bit as well. I just think Smith Rowe is looking better. So if you wanted to go for Arsenal and you didn't want to pay for Saka once he's fit again, then Smith Rowe is probably the one I would go for. But on this list, I do think Mboma is the standout by quite a distance. So if you haven't got him, that is such an easy move if you've got Decore. And to be honest with you, I think like Everton owners, it's after the Watford at home game anyway, it's a good time to come off. And Mboma is the man to go for if you don't already own him. If you do and you want to stay around this price, maybe Smith Rowe. I would just probably avoid the Everton lads for now. Okay, let's go through some of your questions. So this one from 1 Week Punt. Is it worth jumping off Manchester City players that have played a lot recently, thinking Cancelo to a safe bet like Rudiger or even Diaz to capitalise on the points gain last week, having Cancelo instead of those two? So basically, I got a lot of points off Cancelo. Do I now move him on to someone that's a bit safer? I don't think you do, right? I think this is just a classic thing with with FPL managers and Pep Guardiola, right? Is we try and guess what's going to happen. So because Cancelo has played 90 minutes in the Champions League, everyone is just assuming that he doesn't play. But let's not forget, right? I've got Cancelo, so maybe I'm a bit biased. But let's not forget, this guy has started every single game in the league. Yes, at some point he might need a rest, but that tells me that he's pretty much first choice and part of Pep's best 11, right? Yes, Zinchenko's been injured, but Walker and Cancelo is a decent lineup. Cancelo is very good from that left side. So I actually don't think this is a good idea. I think if you've got Man City players, right, unless something has changed. So, Grealish, is he going to be as nailed now that Foden and co are back fit? Maybe not, right? And if Laporte or Stones gets injured, you know that the other one is pretty much nailed to start every single week. Those things can dictate you going for a Man City player because you know they're more nailed on. But in the current climate of Man City, where they've got nearly everybody fit, players are going to miss out at times. So I wouldn't necessarily move from Cancelo to Diaz or Rudiger. Yes, they're going to get you more consistent starts, but I don't think Cancelo is going to miss enough games where the benefit of having Diaz or Rudiger with virtually no attacking threat is better than having Cancelo. I think if you've got your Man City players, just hold out for a few more weeks. Just see what happens. You can't... I just think it's a waste of transfers to keep going back and forth on Man City players. If you buy them knowing that they're going to get rested or they're going to miss minutes at times. And if you don't buy them, fair enough. You just stay clear of them. So, yes, Diaz and Rudiger are perfectly fine picks, if not a little bit boring. I had Rudiger, by the way, so I don't think it's necessarily a bad pick. But if you've got Cancelo, like when he plays, he's one of the best defenders in the game, like right up there with Trent. I wouldn't be selling him right now. There we go. Hopefully that was useful. I kind of had to change the format and some of the bits I put in after what happened yesterday. I've redone it this morning. There's a few sections I had to take out. So hopefully that was useful. I know a lot of people are going to be watching this for Lukaku replacements in particular. So I made sure that was a long part of this video. If you did enjoy it, give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you are new around here. Don't forget to check out NordVPN if you haven't already. There is a link in the description below. Just go to nordvpn.com/letstalkfpl to get your offer. Give it a go. Get it downloaded right right now. Link in the description below, like I said. I will leave that one there. I'll be back tomorrow with kind of another final thoughts video, because I think for my team, there are so many different ways I can spend that Lukaku money, which I'm going to go through. And I'll also put captaincy in that video as well, which I think is going to be pretty obvious this week now. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.